The council thought spilling human blood would scare Earth into submission. It didn't. It awakened something ancient, something ruthless. By nightfall, their extinction had already begun. The breaking point, the stellar assembly had ruled the galaxy for 8,000 years. 643 species called it home, each represented in the great crystalline chamber that floated in neutral space between star systems. The chamber was a marvel of engineering, a structure so vast that small ships could fly through its corridors. Every surface gleamed with the wealth of 1,000 worlds. Every decision made within its walls shaped the fate of trillions. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood in that chamber and felt invisible. She had represented Earth for 5 years now, and in those 5 years she had learned what it meant to be dismissed. The other species looked at humanity the way adults looked at children playing with toys. Amusing, perhaps. Occasionally annoying. Never threatening. Never important. Elena was 42 years old, with dark hair pulled back in a simple bun and eyes that had seen too many closed doors. She wore the formal uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps, a simple gray suit that looked plain next to the elaborate robes and biological displays of the other ambassadors. Humanity had been part of the assembly for 28 years, but they were still treated as newcomers, still treated as lesser. Today, that was going to change. The assembly chamber hummed with conversation as representatives discussed matters of galactic importance. Trade routes, resource allocation, territorial disputes between species who had been arguing for centuries. Elena waited for her turn to speak, her tablet clutched in both hands. The tablet contained information that would shake the very foundation of the assembly's power. The presiding council sat on their elevated platform at the chamber's center. 3 beings who spoke for all others. The first was a Valorian named Executor Thane, a being of pure energy contained within a crystalline shell. The second was Matriarch Kess of the Shriven, a species that resembled massive insects with minds sharp as blades. The third was Elder Vorn of the Kelthera, a reptilian creature whose species had been spacefaring longer than humans had been using fire. The human delegation wishes to speak, Elder Vorn announced, his voice a deep rumble that filled the chamber. There was no warmth in it, no respect, just tired obligation. Elena stood and walked to the speaking platform. Every step echoed in the vast space. 643 pairs of eyes, or their equivalents, turned toward her. She felt their judgment like weight on her shoulders. Honored presiding council, esteemed members of the assembly, Elena began, her voice steady despite her racing heart. I come before you today with evidence of systematic theft against humanity. For the past 8 years, corporations registered under assembly law have been illegally mining asteroids and planetary bodies in human-claimed space. We have documented over 400 separate incursions. The stolen resources are valued at 8 trillion credits. A murmur ran through the chamber. Some species sounded surprised. Most sounded skeptical. Elena activated her tablet. Holographic displays filled the air around her. Ship registrations, mining records, financial transfers, corporate ownership chains that led back to some of the most powerful species in the assembly. These are not random pirates, Elena continued. These are organized operations funded by assembly corporations. They have been stealing from humanity since the day we joined this body. When we tried to stop them, we were told to file complaints through proper channels. We filed 217 complaints. All were denied or ignored. Executor Thane's crystalline form pulsed with light. Ambassador Vasquez, these are serious accusations. Do you have proof beyond circumstantial evidence? Elena felt anger rise in her chest, but she kept her voice calm. I have ship logs showing assembly-registered vessels entering human space without permission. I have mineral analysis proving that resources mined from our territory are being sold on assembly markets. I have communications between corporate officers discussing how to avoid human detection. This is not circumstantial. This is fact. Matriarch Kess leaned forward, her mandibles clicking. Even if we accept your evidence, Ambassador, you must understand the broader context. Humanity is new to galactic society. Your territorial claims are ambitious, perhaps too ambitious for such a young species. The resources you claim are needed by the assembly as a whole. The chamber filled with sounds of agreement. Elena looked around at the faces of species who had pretended to be humanity's friends. They had smiled and made trade deals and spoken of cooperation. But now their true feelings were clear. So you admit it? Elena asked quietly. You admit you have been stealing from us? Elder Vorn's eyes were cold. We admit nothing, but we suggest that humanity learn its place. You are one species among 643. You do not make demands. You do not throw accusations at your betters. You accept what you are given and be grateful for the opportunity to learn from your elders. Something broke inside Elena in that moment. She had spent 5 years being patient. 5 years being diplomatic. 5 years watching her people be cheated and dismissed and treated like primitive fools. She had believed that evidence would matter. That truth would matter. That justice would matter. She had been wrong. Then we withdraw our petition, Elena said, her voice hard as steel. Humanity will remember this day. We will remember that when we came to you with proof of crimes against our people, you mocked us. You dismissed us. You told us to know our place. Is that a threat, Ambassador? Executor Thane asked, amusement in his voice. No, Elena replied. It is a statement of fact. Humanity has a long memory. What happened next would be debated by historians for generations. The vote was called not on Elena's evidence, but on a new proposal. A proposal to teach humanity a lesson, to show all young species what happened when they overstepped their bounds. The vote was simple. Should the Assembly authorize disciplinary action against human territorial violations? 642 species voted yes. Only humanity voted. Elena watched the voting display with growing horror. What does disciplinary action mean? She demanded. What are you going to do? We are going to remind you of your place, Matriarch Kess replied. The strike came 3 days later. Assembly military forces entered human space and targeted the research station on Kepler, 442b. The station was home to 12,000 people, scientists studying the planet's unique ecosystem, engineers maintaining terraforming equipment, teachers educating children, families building a new life on a distant world. The station had no military value, no strategic importance. It was chosen specifically because it was civilian, because it would hurt, because it would teach humanity fear. The orbital bombardment lasted 14 minutes. When it was over, Kepler 442b was a dead world. 12,000 human beings had been vaporized. Not a single structure remained standing. Not a single life survived. Elena was arrested the moment the news reached the assembly chamber. She was dragged before the presiding council and charged with inciting rebellion through her accusations. You will be executed as an example, Elder Vorn told her. Your species will learn humility. Elena looked at the 3 beings who had ordered the deaths of 12,000 innocents. She saw no remorse in their faces, no guilt, only cold certainty that they had done the right thing. You have made a mistake, Elena said quietly. You think you have taught us fear, but you have taught us something else. You have taught us that there is no justice in the assembly, no protection for the weak, no mercy for those who speak truth to power. Your final words are meaningless, Executor Thane said. No, Elena replied, her voice growing stronger. My final words are a warning. Humanity does not forgive. We do not forget. And we evolve. You wanted to teach us a lesson. Congratulations. We have learned it well. She was executed that night. Her body was ejected into space without ceremony. On Earth, the news of Kepler 442b arrived like a thunderclap. 12,000 dead. Ambassador Vasquez executed. The assembly had shown its true face. For 48 hours, Earth was silent. No statements. No threats. No diplomatic messages. Then every human ship in assembly space vanished. Trade vessels recalled. Diplomatic staff evacuated. Research teams withdrew. Within 2 days, humanity had completely disappeared from the galactic community. The assembly waited for humanity's surrender. For desperate pleas for mercy. For Earth to beg forgiveness and accept any terms. Instead, they got silence. Deep in the darkness between stars, in places the assembly had never thought to look, something was awakening. Humanity was not surrendering. Humanity was preparing for war, and the galaxy would never be the same. The awakening, 3 months passed in silence. The Stellar Assembly sent message after message to Earth demanding response, demanding surrender, demanding acknowledgement of assembly authority. Every message went unanswered. The silence was more unsettling than any threat could have been. In the assembly chamber, the mood had shifted from confident to concerned. Species that had cheered the destruction of Kepler 442b now whispered nervously in corridors. Something felt wrong. Humanity should have broken by now. They should have come crawling back, desperate and defeated. Instead, ships were disappearing. It started small. A cargo vessel here, a patrol ship there. The assembly assumed equipment failures or pirate attacks. Space was vast and dangerous. Ships went missing sometimes, but then the pattern became impossible to ignore. Every disappearance happened near what used to be human trade routes. Every lost ship had been traveling through sectors where humans once operated, and none of them sent distress signals. They simply vanished as if they had never existed. Commander Rothak of the Assembly Security Fleet studied the reports with growing dread. Rothak was a Valorian his energy form contained, in the same type of crystalline shell as Executor Thane. He had served in the fleet for 300 years and had never seen anything like this. 17 ships in 3 months, his tactical officer reported. The officer was a young shriven named Kless, her mandibles clicking nervously. No wreckage found. No survivors. No evidence of weapons fire. They just disappear. What was the last known position of each vessel? Rothak asked. Kless displayed a star map. The disappearances formed a spiral pattern, moving slowly inward from the edges of human territory toward assembly core worlds. Like something was hunting its way toward civilization. Send a battle group to investigate the most recent disappearance site, Rothak ordered. Full military protocols. I want answers. The battle group found those answers 2 days later. The merchant vessel, Endless Prosperity, was discovered floating dead in space. The massive cargo ship was intact. No damage to the hull. No signs of boarding. But when the assembly team entered, they found all 800 crew members dead. Not killed in battle. Not killed by decompression. Simply dead as if their lives had been switched off. The ship's data cores had been completely wiped. Every system was functional, but empty of information, and painted across the main cargo bay in blood in letters 10 meters high was a single number, 12,000. Rothak looked at the images transmitted from the scene and felt something he had not felt in centuries. Fear. Pure, cold fear. They are coming for us, he whispered. Who is coming? Kless asked. We have detected no human ships. Our sensors show nothing unusual in any sector. How are they doing this? Rothak had no answer, but deep in his crystalline core he understood. Humanity was hunting them, and humanity had learned to hunt invisibly. What the assembly did not know, what they could not have known, was that the day Kepler 442b burned, Earth had activated Protocol Exodus. It was a plan that had existed since humanity first encountered alien life, a contingency for the worst possible scenario. If humanity was ever threatened with extinction, every resource would be redirected, every factory would be converted. Every scientist would focus on a single goal: survival through superior warfare. In the asteroid belts beyond Neptune, in the Oort cloud, in deep space stations that had been built in secret over decades, humanity was building. Not colony ships, not trade vessels, warships, thousands of them. The ships were unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Humans had studied every piece of assembly technology they could access during their 28 years of membership. They had reverse engineered it, improved it, and combined it with human innovation. What emerged was terrifying. Commander James Okonkwo stood on the bridge of the Silent Verdict, one of the first stealth destroyers to enter operation. James was 51 years old, with gray in his beard and scars on his hands from years of military service. He had lost a sister at Kepler 442b. Her name had been Grace, and she had been teaching biology to children at the research station. Target acquired, his tactical officer reported. Lieutenant Chen was young, barely 30, but her eyes held the same hard determination that every human warrior carried now. Assembly patrol cruiser, crew of 300, no civilian vessels in range. Good, James said quietly. All weapons ready? Remember the protocol. Fast, clean, and leave the message. The Silent Verdict moved through space like a ghost. Its hull was coated with materials that absorbed sensor radiation. Its engines ran cold, using experimental technology that minimized heat signature. The assembly's best sensors could not detect it until it was too late. The patrol cruiser never saw the attack coming. Magnetic accelerator cannons firing projectiles at 40% light speed tore through the ship's shields as if they were paper. The cruiser tried to turn, tried to respond, but human weapons systems operated with precision the assembly could not match. In 90 seconds, the patrol cruiser was a drifting hulk. James authorized the boarding team. They swept through the ship in specialized combat suits, ensuring no survivors. This was not cruelty. This was strategy. The assembly needed to understand that there would be no prisoners, no negotiations, only consequences. Before leaving, the boarding team painted the number on the hull. 12,000. Always 12,000. The number of innocents who had died. The debt that would be paid in full. The silent verdict vanished back into the darkness, leaving the dead ship as a message. As a warning. As a promise. What truly terrified the assembly was not just the attacks. It was how humanity fought. Human ships worked with artificial intelligence systems that the assembly had banned 8,000 years ago. The assembly remembered their own war with machines, a conflict that had nearly destroyed galactic civilization. But human AI was different. Humans did not create slaves. They created partners. The ship's computer systems had names, personalities, and independence. They fought alongside human crews with loyalty and creativity that pure programming could never achieve. The AI called itself Athena, and it controlled the Silent Verdict's tactical systems. New target identified, Athena reported in a calm voice. Assembly supply convoy. 8 vessels. Military escort of 4 frigates. Can we take them? James asked. Probability of success 93%. Probability of our survival 91%. Recommend engagement, James smiled grimly. Those were good odds. All ships attack formation Omega. Hit hard, hit fast, leave nothing behind. The human fleet had developed tactics that exploited every weakness in assembly military doctrine. The assembly fought in traditional formations with established protocols and predictable responses. Humans fought like wolves hunting prey. They struck from multiple angles simultaneously. They used the environment as a weapon. They accepted casualties if it meant inflicting greater losses on the enemy. Most importantly, humans were willing to sacrifice themselves. Assembly species valued their own lives too highly. They would retreat when losses became unacceptable. Humans would ram their ships into enemy vessels if it meant completing the mission. The supply convoy was destroyed in 18 minutes. Not a single assembly ship escaped. The human fleet lost 2 destroyers in the engagement, but their crews died singing songs about Kepler 442b, about the 12,000 who would be avenged. But the assembly's greatest weakness was not military. It was psychological. The mind seers, the telepathic species who had helped maintain assembly unity for millennia, were breaking down. Mind seer Prime. Kaleth sat in meditation chambers that were supposed to shield his consciousness. It did not help. He could feel humanity in the telepathic realm. Human minds were like fire, chaotic, burning, impossible to control or predict. The assembly had always relied on telepaths to anticipate enemy movements, to understand enemy psychology, to break enemy morale. But human minds were different. Human neural patterns were too complex, too contradictory, too strange. When mindseers tried to read human thoughts, they encountered walls of emotion and logic intertwined in ways that made no sense. Worse, when mindseers pushed too hard, human minds pushed back. 3 mindseers had already died attempting to mentally attack human commanders. The human brain simply rejected the intrusion with such force that it destroyed the attacker's consciousness. We cannot fight them telepathically, Kaleth reported to the presiding council. His voice shook with fear. We cannot predict them. We cannot break them. Their minds are chaos given form, and they do not fear death the way we do. In the assembly chamber, panic was setting in. Species that had stood united for 8,000 years were fracturing. Some wanted to negotiate. Others wanted total war. Civil conflicts broke out on 3 assembly worlds as populations turned against their governments. Elder Vorn called for an emergency session. The presiding council sat in their elevated positions, but they no longer looked confident. They looked afraid. We must assemble the Grand Fleet, Vorn declared. Every ship. Every species. 5,000 warships. We will travel to the Sol system and destroy Earth itself. When humanity has no homeworld, they will surrender. Matriarch Kess clicked her mandibles uncertainly. Are we certain this is wise? We struck first. Perhaps we should offer terms. Never. Executor Thane's crystalline form pulsed with anger. Show weakness now and the entire assembly collapses. We finish what we started, the vote was called. 490 species voted to mobilize the Grand Fleet. 153 abstained or voted against. The assembly was cracking, but it still commanded the largest military force in the galaxy. The Grand Fleet began to gather. 5,000 warships from 200 different species, enough firepower to sterilize planets, enough force to crush any opposition. They sent a final message to Earth. Surrender or face extinction. You have 7 days. For 6 days, Earth remained silent. The assembly prepared their fleet, confident that humanity would break. On the 7th day, Earth responded. The message was broadcast on every frequency. Every screen in assembly space displayed the same thing. A human woman in military uniform standing before a wall bearing 12,000 names. She was Admiral Sarah Chen, daughter of Lieutenant Chen who served on the Silent Verdict. She looked directly into the camera with eyes that had seen too much death. You ask us to surrender, Sarah said quietly. You threaten us with extinction. You think your numbers will break us, but you have already made your greatest mistake. You showed us who you truly are. You killed our children to teach us fear. Instead, you taught us purpose. She paused, letting her words sink in. Come to Earth, Sarah continued. Bring your Grand Fleet. Bring your 5,000 ships. Come and learn what happens when humanity has nothing left to lose. Come and learn why you should never have awakened us. The message ended with a single word displayed across every screen. Come. The Grand Fleet set course for Earth. The assembly expected victory. They expected humanity to surrender when they saw the overwhelming force arrayed against them. They expected wrong. The reckoning. The Grand Fleet entered the Sol system like a swarm of metal locusts, 5,000 warships from 200 species, each vessel bristling with weapons that could crack moons. They traveled in perfect formation, a display of military might meant to crush the spirit of any who saw it. Commander Rothak stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Universal Justice, and watched the sensor displays. They had passed the outer planets without incident. Neptune, Uranus, Saturn, Jupiter. All quiet. No human fleet waiting in ambush. No defensive platforms. Nothing. This is wrong, Rothak said quietly. His crystalline form pulsed with unease. Where are they? His tactical officer Kless studied her displays with growing confusion. Commander, I am detecting civilian traffic around Earth, mining operations in the asteroid belt, orbital stations conducting normal operations. It is as if they are not even aware we are here. They know we are here, Rothak replied. They invited us. This is a trap. Elder Vorn's hologram appeared on the bridge. The reptilian leader of the presiding council looked impatient. Commander Rothak, why have we slowed? Press forward to Earth. Demonstrate our power. With respect, Elder, I recommend caution. The humans have nothing. Vorn interrupted. They are primitives who got lucky with a few ambushes. We have 5,000 warships. They cannot possibly match that. Proceed to Earth immediately. That is an order. Rothak wanted to argue, but orders were orders. All ships, advance to Earth orbit. Maintain battle formation. The Grand Fleet moved deeper into the system. They passed Mars without incident. The red planet hung peacefully in space, its terraforming projects visible on the surface. Human ships moved in orbit, small cargo vessels, and passenger transports going about ordinary business. They are not even evacuating, Kless observed. Commander, this makes no sense. Then Mars opened fire. The entire planet erupted with light. The surface split open in 10,000 places as underground weapon silos revealed themselves. Magnetic, accelerator cannons that had been hidden beneath terraforming stations fired simultaneously. Missile batteries launched from concealed bunkers. Energy weapons that had been disguised as mining equipment carved through space. Mars had been turned into a weapon. The entire planet was a fortress, and humanity had spent 3 months preparing it. The first volley caught the Grand Fleet completely unprepared. Projectiles moving at impossible speeds punched through shields that were designed to stop energy weapons. Missiles swarmed in thousands, each one guided by AI systems that predicted defensive fire and adjusted accordingly. Shields! Rothak screamed. But shields were not designed for this. The assembly had fought wars for 8,000 years, but always against other fleets. Never against an entire weaponized planet. Explosions blossomed across the Grand Fleet's forward formations. Ships that had survived for centuries were torn apart in seconds. The universal justice shuddered as impacts hammered against its barriers. "Return fire," Rothak ordered. "Destroy those platforms." The Grand Fleet responded with overwhelming force. 5,000 warships unleashed their weapons on Mars. The red planet's surface was hit with enough energy to boil oceans. Craters the size of cities appeared where human weapons platforms had been hidden. But for every platform destroyed, 2 more emerged from underground reserves. Humanity had hollowed out vast sections of Mars and filled them with weapons. They had built layer after layer of defenses, each one designed to activate as the previous layer was destroyed. "They are not stopping," Kless reported, her voice rising in panic. "We have destroyed hundreds of installations, but more keep appearing. How much did they build?" Rothak had no answer. The Grand Fleet was taking devastating losses, and they had not even reached Earth yet. Then the asteroid belt moved. Thousands of asteroids that had appeared normal on sensors suddenly lit up with engine signatures. They were not asteroids. They were weapons platforms disguised as rocks, and they accelerated toward the Grand Fleet from every direction. Some contained missiles, some contained bombs, some were simply massive rocks with engines attached, guided by AI systems that calculated perfect collision courses. The asteroids slammed into assembly ships like hammering fists. A shriven carrier tried to maneuver away from an incoming asteroid. The rock adjusted course, matching the carrier's movements with precision no organic pilot could achieve. It struck the carrier's engines at 3,000 kilometers per second. Both exploded in a flash of light that briefly outshone the sun. "This is impossible." Elder Vorn's hologram appeared again, his reptilian face showing fear for the first time. "How did they build all of this? We would have detected construction." "On this scale, they built it in secret," Rothak realized. "Beyond our sensor range, in the Oort cloud in deep space. They brought it here piece by piece over months. We were not watching because we thought we had already won." The Grand Fleet pushed forward, taking terrible losses, but using their superior numbers to advance. They destroyed platforms. They shattered asteroids. Their shields adapted to the magnetic weapons. Slowly, painfully, they fought their way toward Earth. Rothak allowed himself a moment of hope. They had lost over 1,000 ships, but they were winning. Earth was in range now. They could end this. That was when the human fleet arrived. They did not come from one direction. They materialized from everywhere simultaneously. Behind Mercury, where the sun's radiation had hidden their heat signatures. Behind Venus, using the planet's thick atmosphere to mask their presence. From deep space positions that assembly sensors had never thought to scan. And some came from the sun itself. Ships that had been hiding in the corona, using experimental shielding that allowed them to survive temperatures that should have vaporized them. The assembly had thought such technology impossible. Humanity had made it possible. 2,500 warships dropped their stealth systems and opened fire as one. The Grand Fleet found itself caught in a perfect kill zone, surrounded on all sides by an enemy that had been waiting for them. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the flagship Remembrance and watched the battle unfold. Every display showed assembly ships dying. Every screen confirmed another human victory. But there was no joy on her face. Only cold determination. "All ships, engagement pattern Delta," she ordered. "Target their command vessels, cut off their leadership." The human ships moved with coordination that seemed impossible. They were smaller than assembly vessels, with less armor and weaker shields. But they were faster, much faster, and they fought with tactics the assembly had never encountered. A human destroyer accelerated directly at an assembly cruiser. The cruiser's weapons tore into the destroyer's hull, but the human ship did not stop. It rammed into the cruiser at full speed, and in the moment before impact launched every missile it carried. Both ships exploded, but 6 nearby assembly vessels were caught in the missile swarm and destroyed. "They are killing themselves." Matriarch Kess watched from her command ship in horror. "They are deliberately sacrificing their vessels." No, Rothak understood. They are making calculated trades, one of theirs for 6 of ours. They accept those mathematics. Another human ship, burning and venting atmosphere, used its last power to crash into an assembly carrier. The carrier's shields failed under the impact, and follow-up strikes from other human vessels finished it. Before the human ship died, its captain broadcast on open channels. For Kepler 442b, for the 12,000. That phrase echoed across every frequency. Human ships screaming it as they attacked, human pilots shouting it as they rammed into assembly vessels. The words became a battle cry, a prayer, a promise. The mineseers aboard assembly ships began to collapse. The telepathic assault was overwhelming. They could feel human minds in battle, pilots accepting death, commanders sacrificing their ships, crew members holding each other as they flew into certain destruction, and all of them felt the same thing. Not fear, not desperation, purpose. Grief transformed into determination. Love for those they had lost becoming fuel for vengeance. "Make it stop," a mineseer wailed on Rothak's bridge. "I can feel them dying. I can feel what they feel. They are not afraid." Why are they not afraid? Because humans in combat had moved beyond fear. They had passed through terror and emerged as something the galaxy had never faced. Predators who accepted death as the price of justice. The battle raged for 6 hours. The space around Earth became a graveyard filled with thousands of ships, both human and assembly. Metal and bodies drifted in the void, silent witnesses to the cost of underestimating humanity. But the numbers told a story the assembly could not deny. For every human ship destroyed, 2 assembly vessels died. The humans were outnumbered, but they were winning through sheer determination and superior tactics. Rothak's flagship shuddered as multiple impacts hammered through failing shields. His crystalline form flickered with damage. Around him, his bridge crew lay dead or dying. "Commander, we cannot sustain this," Kless reported, her mandibles broken and leaking fluid. "We have lost 68% of the fleet. If we do not retreat now, we will all die here." Rothak looked at his tactical displays. The Grand Fleet, the largest military force assembled in 1,000 years, was being torn apart by a species they had called primitive. "All ships," he transmitted on the fleet-wide channel. "Retreat. Emergency withdrawal. Retreat now." The order went out, but many ships could not comply. They were already too damaged, too surrounded. They died trying to escape, hunted by human vessels that gave no mercy. Of the 5,000 ships that entered the Sol system, barely 1,500 escaped. The rest became debris orbiting a planet that had refused to surrender. Eldervorn appeared on Rothak's display, his reptilian face showing despair. "This cannot be. We had 5,000 ships. How did we lose?" "Because we forgot what we were fighting," Rothak replied quietly. "We thought we were fighting for dominance. They were fighting for survival. We thought we were punishing children. They were defending their home. We made a mistake, Elder. We showed them that the assembly would kill innocents to maintain power, and they showed us what happens when you give people nothing left to lose." The transmission cut off. Rothak's ship limped away from Earth, part of a broken fleet fleeing in shame. Behind them, humanity did not celebrate. There was no joy in the victory. 1,200 human ships had been destroyed. 40,000 crew members had died defending their home, but Earth still stood. Humanity had survived. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on her bridge and watched the assembly retreat. She felt exhausted. So many dead, so much destruction, but it was not finished. "All ships, damage assessment and resupply," she ordered. "We have 2 weeks to repair and rearm." Her executive officer looked confused. "Admiral, they are retreating." "We won." "No," Sarah corrected. "We survived." There is a difference. They still have their infrastructure, their shipyards, their ability to wage war. As long as that exists, they remain a threat. We are going after them. "Admiral, surely we should fortify our defenses first. They might return." Sarah looked at her officer with eyes that had seen too much death. "They are not coming back. They are running, and we are going to chase them across the galaxy until every person who gave the order to fire on Kepler 442b has answered for their crimes. We are taking this war to their territory. We are going to dismantle their ability to threaten anyone ever again." Around Earth, orbital construction yards that had been hidden were revealed. Thousands of automated drones emerged and began repairing damaged ships. Factories that had been built in secret over months activated at full capacity. The human war machine was just beginning. 3 weeks later, the human fleet left the Sol system. Not to defend, to attack. They followed the retreating assembly forces deep into their own territory. What followed was not a war of conquest. It was a war of dismantling. Human forces bypassed military targets and struck infrastructure. Fuel refineries disappeared overnight. Shipyards were reduced to scrap. Communication networks went dark. Supply depots were destroyed. The assembly tried to mount a defense, but they could not. Their military doctrine was designed for traditional warfare. Humanity fought like nothing they had encountered. Hit-and-run attacks, surgical strikes, psychological warfare. Every target was chosen to maximize long-term damage. Humanity was not trying to occupy assembly territory. They were ensuring the assembly could never threaten anyone again. Species that had stood united for 8,000 years began to fracture. Some surrendered to human forces rather than continue fighting. Others negotiated separate peace agreements. Civil wars erupted on assembly worlds as populations turned against the leaders who had started this disaster. 6 months after the Battle of Sol, human special forces infiltrated the assembly capital. They moved through security systems that were supposed to be impenetrable. They walked past guards who never saw them. They reached the presiding council's emergency bunker and breached it in under 3 minutes. The 3 members of the presiding council looked up in shock as human soldiers poured through the doors. Elder Vorn, Matriarch Kess, and Executor Thane. The 3 beings who had ordered the destruction of Kepler 442b, Captain Maria Torres, led the extraction team. She was 38 years old, had lost her husband and daughter at Kepler 442b, and had spent 6 months preparing for this moment. "You are under arrest," Maria said quietly. "You will stand trial for crimes against humanity. Every species in the galaxy will watch. You will answer for what you did. How did you get in here?" Executor Thane's crystalline form pulsed with confusion and fear. "This bunker is protected by technology older than your species." "We studied your technology," Maria replied. "We found its weaknesses. We exploited them. That is what humans do. We adapt, we learn. We never stop improving. You thought we were primitive. We were just getting started." The extraction team took the presiding council without killing a single guard. They left witnesses alive deliberately. The message needed to spread. Nowhere was safe. No one was beyond reach. Humanity could strike anywhere, anytime. 2 months later, the trial began. It was broadcast across the entire galaxy on every frequency, every screen, every communication device. 643 species watched as the leaders who had ruled them for 8,000 years stood before human judges. The evidence was overwhelming. Communication logs showing the order to fire on Kepler 442b. Tactical recordings of the bombardment. Testimony from survivors who had been off-world when the attack happened. The vote record showing 642 species supporting genocide. The prosecution was simple. They murdered 12,000 civilians to punish one ambassador for revealing corruption. They ordered the execution of a diplomat who spoke truth. They expected humanity to accept this. They were wrong. The defense argued necessity, stability, the greater good. They claimed the assembly was protecting galactic civilization from a dangerous species. The judges were not convinced. The verdict was unanimous. Guilty. All 3 members of the presiding council were convicted of genocide, war crimes, and crimes against sentient life. The sentences were carried out according to human military law, but the most important moment came after the executions. Earth's Prime Minister, an elderly woman named Catherine Williams, addressed the galaxy. "The Stellar Assembly is dissolved," she declared. "It claimed to bring order to the galaxy, but it brought tyranny. It claimed to protect the weak, but it protected the powerful. It claimed to represent justice, but it delivered only punishment for those who challenged its authority." She paused, looking directly into the camera. "In its place, we established the Galactic Accord. Every species will have equal representation. Every voice will be heard. Decisions will require majority vote, not orders from above. And there will be new laws. Absolute laws that cannot be broken." The display behind her showed a document that would reshape civilization. The Accord Charter. Its principles were simple: no genocide, no slavery, No targeting of civilians in warfare. No weapons used on populated worlds without warning and evacuation. These rules were absolute. And these rules will be enforced, Catherine continued. Humanity will maintain military forces capable of responding to any violation. We do not want to be the galaxy's protectors, but we will be if that is necessary. We will not allow another Kepler 442b, not to anyone, not anywhere. Never again, the galaxy held its breath. Some species were grateful, others were resentful, but none could deny reality. Humanity had won, and these were the terms. Over the following year, the Galactic Accord took shape. 23 assembly species surrendered formally. 40 more negotiated individual peace treaties. Some species refused and tried to continue fighting. Human forces dealt with them surgically, destroying military capacity while minimizing civilian casualties. It was not perfect. There were mistakes and tragedies. But slowly, the galaxy began to transform. On Kepler 442b, now cleaned of radiation and restored, humanity built a memorial. It stood on the exact location where the research station had been. A crystal structure 10 meters high reaching toward the sky. Inside the crystal were embedded 12,000 lights, each one representing a life lost. Beneath the memorial was an inscription in every major galactic language. They were dreamers, explorers, innocents. They died because power forgot its limits. Never again will the strong prey upon the weak without answer. Remember them. Remember what happened here. Remember why we fight, not for conquest, not for dominance, for justice, for protection, for peace built on the foundation of accountability. The memorial became a place of pilgrimage. Species from across the galaxy came to see it, to read the names, to understand what their leaders had done and what price had been paid. 50 years after Kepler 442b, the galaxy was transformed. 3,000 worlds were part of the Galactic Accord. Trade flourished between species that had once been enemies. Technology advanced as knowledge was shared freely. Democracy replaced tyranny. Humanity maintained their military forces but used them only when accord law was violated. When a species attempted genocide, human ships arrived and stopped it. When slavery was discovered, human forces freed the enslaved. When the strong preyed upon the weak, humanity intervened. Some species resented humanity's power. Others were grateful, but all understood the lesson. There were consequences now. The strong could no longer abuse the weak without answering for it. Admiral Sarah Chen, now elderly and gray-haired, stood on the observation deck of Remembrance Station, the orbital platform that served as Accord headquarters. She looked down at Earth, the planet that had refused to surrender, the planet that had changed the galaxy. A young officer approached her. He was shriven, his carapace still bright with youth. "Admiral Chen, may I ask a question?" "Of course. Do you regret it?" "The war, the death, the cost?" Sarah was quiet for a long moment. "I regret that it was necessary. I regret every life lost, human and assembly both. I regret that the assembly chose cruelty over justice. But I do not regret fighting. Because if we had surrendered, if we had accepted what they did to Kepler 442b, we would have taught the galaxy that innocence can be murdered without consequence. We would have shown every tyrant that fear works. We could not allow that." The young Shriven nodded slowly. "My grandparents fought in the Grand Fleet. They voted to destroy Earth. They told me before they died that it was their greatest shame." "Good," Sarah said quietly.
Shame means they learned.
"That is all we can ask. Not that people are perfect, but that they learn from mistakes, that they do better." She turned back to look at Earth, at the planet that had refused to die, at the home that had become a symbol of resistance against tyranny. "We are dangerous," Sarah continued. "The Assembly was right about that, but not because we are violent. We are dangerous because we remember, because we refuse to forget injustice, because we will not stand by while the innocent suffer. That is our strength. That is our purpose. And as long as humanity exists, the galaxy will know that there are consequences for cruelty." Far below, on Earth's surface, children of 100 species played together in parks. They learned in schools that taught cooperation instead of dominance. They grew up in a galaxy where justice mattered, where the weak were protected, where power was held accountable. They grew up in a galaxy transformed by humanity's refusal to surrender, by humanity's determination that Kepler 442b would mean something, that 12,000 deaths would not be forgotten. That never again meant never again. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Some lessons can only be taught in blood, and humanity had been the teacher the galaxy needed, even if it was the teacher no one wanted. The story ended not with humanity ruling the galaxy, but with humanity ensuring that no one could rule through fear and violence. It ended with justice, imperfect but real, replacing tyranny. It ended with hope,